you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Playing on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre, McGuire, and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche. And after 22 years, Raymond Moore
The sickest NHL podcast. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome to another edition of the Eye Test here on the Sick Podcast Network. He is Pierre McGuire. I am Jimmy Murphy. Pierre, how are you today, my friend?
Excellent. Never better, Jimmy. Thank you. How are you?
I'm good, my man. I'm just moving through this week. Can't believe it's almost Friday. Lots of hockey to talk about. We will be joined shortly by our good friend Jack Michaels of Sportsnet in Edmonton. Does a play-by-play for the Edmonton Oilers. They are in Nashville tonight, Pierre, to take on the Predators. Should be a good game there. Nashville really needs to get going. We'll get into that. But Edmonton, of course, won their last game in overtime. They're trying to turn a corner now after a rough start. We will see what happens there. But Pierre, before we get to that, we got to talk about some history that was made last night. And of course, that means Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin. Pierre, you've had the pleasure of seeing both close up as you worked with NBC down on the ice and interviewing them and pretty much covering almost their whole career. I'm wondering, when you saw Sid last night register his 1600th point on an assist on a Brian Russ goal, and then Evgeny Malkin getting his 500th goal, what went through your head?
I'm old. I remember Sid's first goal like it was yesterday. It was first goal at the World Juniors, the youngest Canadian to ever score, 16 years of age, 2004 in Helsinki, Finland. I remember the golden goal from Sidney Crosby in 2010. Iggy in Vancouver. I'll never forget it. Being between the benches for that game was magical. And then obviously last night, I remember one of Crosby's first game-winning goals was at a shootout against Montreal. It was surreal. You just remember so many of his special moments. So Sid, I always thought, was on another level. I took a lot of heat for my support of Sidney. I'll never back down from that. And all those people that were doing that, shame on them. It's because they were so jealous of this guy. And I will always cherish the friendship that I've had with him over the years because he's an honorable person. He's a significantly honorable person. And he's meant a huge deal to the National Hockey League, to the city of Pittsburgh, and to the Pittsburgh Penguins organization. And if you don't believe me, ask Mario Lemieux. He'll be sure to tell you the same thing. And in terms of Gino, I think back to his draft year, 2004, goes right behind Ovechkin, his countryman. Whoever would have thought the Pittsburgh Penguins in 2003 would have taken Marc-Andre Fleury first. In 2004, they'd take Evgeny Malkin. And in 2005, they'd win the lottery and they'd get a special player like Sidney Crosby. And look at all three of those guys are still playing, which is unbelievable. But Gino's a special guy. I remember meeting Gino the first time. He couldn't speak English. Then he was living at Sergei Gonchar's house. And it was Sergei Gonchar's daughter that taught him how to speak English, and which is an amazing story. Gino is a proud kid. He's from a very tough town. Magnitogorsk is a very different kind of a place. It's not Moscow. It's not St. Petersburg. It's a really tough place. He's a proud guy, man. He shows up every single day. He competes. Last year, he had a terrible year. He'd be the first person to tell you that. So what went through my brain last night as I'm watching Gino is how committed he must have been this summer, how embarrassed he was by what he did last year, and how he never wants to relive that again. He wants to go out on his terms, at his level, where he should be. He's a consummate trophy winner. He's the three-time Stanley Cup winner. He's been in the final 4 times. He's a spectacular player. So the first thing I thought of, Jimmy, to answer your question after this sermon was I felt old. But I know I'm not what I felt because I've been watching you for so long. And one of the best, I can tell you this, and I don't even know if Gino's aware of this. In 2006, the World Junior was in Vancouver, and there were tons of exhibition games up through the Okanagan Valley. And Gordon Miller, my partner, and I were covering those for TSN. And one of them was Russia versus Canada, which was kind of weird because usually they don't play exhibition games. But this was played in Kamloops, and it was sold out, so I'm sure it generated a lot of revenue for the tournament. Gino didn't play in that game. He showed up late. There was something different about his travel. He didn't play. But after the game was over, we go back to our studio, and here's this guy with just, his training trunks on, no top, and he's full of sweat, and he turns around, and it's Evgeny Malkin.
Oh, wow.
So he's playing the game, but he punished himself beyond belief while the game was going on. And it's one of those, you never forget it because you see how hard that guy worked to be good. And that's what I thought of with him. He was so bad last year, and he knew it. And he put the work. Look at the start to the season he's had this year, Jimmy.
Yeah, he leads the league in points right now. He leads the league in points. He's been unreal. Pierre, let's go to the clip right now. We'll go first to Crosby's clip, and I want to ask you because I sort of had these things go through my mind as I watched it over and over. How much of this goal was a typical result of who Sidney Crosby is and what he can do? So let's go to the Crosby 1600 point right now.
He stays with it, wins the puck back. Hands off for Brian Rust. Now Crosby dropped off. Malkin shot block. Got it again right there, and they score! It's Brian Rust on the power play. And Pittsburgh has got back within one. And Sidney Crosby just picked up point number 1,600 of his illustrious career.
So he just always knows where to be. And he always, once he gets there, it's almost as if the team, his teammates, sort of unconsciously just flock to him, and so he's always in front of the net. So that's why he's been so good. He's always gets to the spots where he's supposed to be, and then you sort of see it's almost like Velcro to his teammates, and that's what I saw in that play.
That's a great call. You don't need to hear from me. That was a good one. Doc Emmerich would have been proud of you on that one. So here's a cool stat that I was not aware of until today. When Crosby got his 500th goal, there was only one guy that assisted. It was Malkin.
Wow.
When Malkin gets his 500th goal, there's only one guy that assisted. It's Crosby.
And let's go to that goal right now, and then we'll comment a little more on it. Here's Malkin's 500th with Crosby on the helper.
But that shot creates a little more chaos down there.
Face-off win, final seconds of the power play for Pittsburgh. That one overshot Crosby. Now it's Malkin. Malkin down. Crosby to the front for Malkin. Save made. Rebound scores! Number 500 for Evgeny Malkin.
Now, right there, that must have taken you down memory lane because that was a classic Malkin goal. That was a trademark Malkin goal.
That's Gino personified. Yeah. I do this show every Tuesday at 3:30 in the afternoon with the great Mark Madden in Pittsburgh.
Yes.
And he is a legend in that community.
Yep.
He is a legend. And I've been doing it for probably the last 2.5, 3 years with him, 3:30 every Tuesday. And he asked me, I'm going to say probably 2 weeks ago during training camp, just before the regular season started.
Right.
What do you think Malkin has to do this year, Pierre, to get it back on track? I said he needs to start playing defense. Mm-hmm. He was horse poop last year playing defense. And so one of his trademarks is he's an amazing player when it comes to forcing turnovers and counterattacking. He's really good at that. Like unbelievable. Like Datsuk was so good at it. Datsuk's going in the Hall of Fame this year. Yeah. Same kind of deal. Gino probably a better skater than Datsuk.
And bigger too.
A lot bigger.
Yeah.
And so I didn't see that in the first. If you remember their first game, they played in Pittsburgh, and it was embarrassing. The whole team was embarrassing, but not just Gino, the whole team. And then they go into Detroit and win. Then they play in Toronto, and they don't win, but he plays well, and the team plays well. Toronto's really good, Jimmy. We've talked about that.
Yeah, we'll get to
and then they go into Montreal, and they win. And then they go home and play Buffalo, and they come from behind. Is that a Rembrandt kind of a game? No, it's not. It's an awful hockey game. It's not a good game by either team.
Right.
But Malkin and Crosby make it a masterpiece because of the historical moment.
Yep. And their trademark play, and that was on. That was on example there. Speaking of that game, one more thing about it, and we'll move on from there because I know we got Jack Michaels coming up. There's a couple other NHL things I want to talk about, but with that game, Pierre. On the other side, the Buffalo Sabres are in trouble. And I know it's early, and I'm not trying to, be all doom and gloom and the sky is falling type person here, but let's call a spade a spade. There's something wrong with this team right now. And it's a lot of what we've seen for years.
We call it before they went overseas. You know, and we said this is a year they got to start fast, and if they don't
And they
start
need to set that tempo over there.
and they did not. They did not. New Jersey took it to them. And, you know, then they come home and they have a tough time with LA. And, you know, we talked about LA had been there, and Kopitar gets a hat trick. And it's opening night in Buffalo. And the problem is that the fans vote with the seats, the purchase of the seats. And there weren't a lot of people there. So the fans aren't buying it right now.
No.
And if they don't get on a roll, the fans aren't going to buy it. And that's a hockey market that's really important, because that's a passionate hockey market with great people that care about the game.
Yeah.
So I'm concerned. I think you are. At some point here, Kevin Adams can't wait long. If he doesn't like, or the coach doesn't like the way the team's playing, they're going to have to shake the tree fast. They have no choice. They're going to have to shake the tree fast.
And let's make it clear, it's not going to be the coach, okay? Because you already pulled that.
The coach. Nobody wants to blame Lindy Ruff. No, you're not watching the game. It's not about the coach. This isn't about the coach.
Well, I'm seeing some pundits, Pierre, on social, and I know you're not on there, and you know I envy you for that sometimes. And this stuff frustrates me. I see people saying, oh, "This is just the same Lindy Ruff we saw in Jersey, same old Ruff, same." I'm like, this has nothing to do with Jersey. This isn't the same old Lindy Ruff. I'm sure when he went into camp, he instilled what he needed to instill there. Now it's up to them to buy in, and they're not buying it. And I don't know if they just think that success is going to be handed to them. And I'm talking about the young core. I'm not going to name specific names, even though I have a couple I'd like to. But that young core right now, it's time to take some responsibility. It's time for accountability.
Hey, Jimmy, how long do you get to be called a young core? Like,
get right.
You know, at some point, young stuff's got to go away.
Yeah.
You know,
you gotta grow up.
I'm glad you got Jack on today, because forever we've heard about this young core in Edmonton. The young core, that young core stunk for a long time. And all of a sudden they, you know, caught lightning in a bottle last year.
Yep.
And they made a coaching change. They made a couple player transactions, and they got better. You know, they changed the management team. They got better. So let's see what they do this year. But in Buffalo, you know, how many times you got Ralph Kruger, you changed the management, you bring in a different GM, you bring in a different coach, Donnie Granado. He doesn't work out. Then you bring in Lindy. Like, at some point, it's the same coaches that are getting eviscerated because the players stay the same.
Yeah.
Players are the problem. It's not the coach.
Yeah.
And in Buffalo, some of those guys, I'm telling you, like, they're lucky. They're lucky because the Buffalo fans are amazingly loyal. They're good people. They're lucky they're not in a crazy market.
What had to be frustrating too, Pierre, is like, I mean, it went exactly as you predicted, you know, where Pittsburgh's back from the road trip. I mean, that's common. That first period, you got to shake out the cobwebs. It's getting back into the groove of being at home. And they weren't all there, you know, and Buffalo sensed it and they took it to them, but then they just let up. And, you know, I don't care who you're playing. You know, it doesn't matter if you're playing superstars like Crosby and Malkin, or you're playing even a minor league team. I don't care. You can't let up. You can't do that. And it was so clear as it developed. And I'm just like, I should have caught. I'm like, been like, are you watching this, Pierre? Like, it just look at them just sit back. Like they were literally stepping back and letting Pittsburgh take it to them.
Yeah, it's almost like they were stunned by the moment. You know what? I see that he's here. I can't wait to get Jack on. You want to talk about it? You know what the Buffalo Sabres could use? A little Jack Michaels energy.
A little Captain Jack
Michaels energy.
Well, let's bring him on right now. Jack Michaels, a play-by-play man for the Edmonton Oilers, joining us from Nashville. Jack, how you doing, my friend?
I'm good. Ready to get back after it. And, you know, obviously you've got the two oldest teams, and you combine that with Colorado. I think a lot of Western Conference experts would have maybe had Edmonton, Colorado, Nashville. Some would have had Dallas in the top three, but those three teams are combined 1-10. So here we are.
Yeah.
Hey, Jack, before Jimmy gets going, Jack, I'm telling you right now, we've talked about a lot, and I know you don't care about it, but Colorado's in trouble.
Yeah.
They're in trouble.
Well, I do care about it because, honestly, you know, when I looked at the West this year, I really felt like the Central was an absolute landmine, because I felt like I did see that Utah was coming. And if they bolstered their defense and got a reasonable goaltending performance, I thought they might be a contender, which then begged the question, who's going to be out in the Central? And all of a sudden, you've got Colorado and Nashville off to these kind of starts. Georgiev is really off to a rough start. But then again, the guy here in Nashville who signed a big ticket, he's off to a poor start as well. Now, I know they're giving up chances, and Andrew Burnett to this point has talked more about that, especially his team's, defense in transition. But on the other hand, I look at what's the common thread with Georgiev and Saros. Man, a lot of mileage the last couple of years. They played a lot of games. There haven't been acceptable options in Colorado or Nashville the last couple of years. And in fact, I thought Lankinen may be more of an exceptional option in Nashville. But the bottom line is for several years, and quite frankly, that's been Nashville's history, right? They go with their number one guy until there's no more tread left on the tire. 70 games be damned. So I agree with you, Pierre. I think it's not too early to start saying, hey, do we have to revise what we thought about the Central?
Yeah.
Jack, as you might have heard, we were just talking about the Sabres coming on, and Pierre made a kind of a good parallel he drew there about young cores, waiting for them to take that next step, to accept responsibility as not being young anymore, as being the guys. We saw Edmonton do that last year. Obviously, the coaching change sparked it. But to you, what was the spark within the room amongst the players that got them going on their own, that made them realize and look in the mirror, hey, this is on us now. We can't keep having these coaches get fired because of us. We need to go out and do it.
Well, I think you just answered it. I mean, that's honestly, they felt embarrassed that they got a coach fired. And, I think, by and large, a good chunk of them felt that way about Tip too. They just, Edmonton, for whatever reason, the identity of this team is that in games, in months, in seasons, it seems to need to want to just, dig this massive crater that they've got to get out of. I don't know what it is. This team does not deal with prosperity well for whatever reason. I can't figure it out. And it does. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because that was the talk in camp. And they had a lousy camp. They didn't look sharp in preseason. I mean, Connor McDavid played 5 games in preseason. What does that tell you? And everyone else played 4. Most teams might have wanted to play their top guys 3 at the most. But I think, to be honest with you, the guys knew, hey, I don't feel good. My legs are whatever. I'm not there yet. And, I was talking with a few guys early in the season, and they said it's amazing how many different levels there are in this game. And I think a lot of people forget that. Pierre knows, because he knows the bushes in junior hockey inside out. And for that matter, I at least know minor pro. There are so many levels in hockey. And what I mean by that is not just playing levels from junior to dominating major junior to being a really good minor league player to being that tweener guy to being a solid NHL to being the elite NHL player and then to being the elite of the elite NHL player. I'm talking about the kind of hockey that Edmonton played last June. Then the kind of hockey they play in the preseason. Then the kind of hockey that starts in October. Then what it looks like in January. Then what it looks like in March. And right now, I think the Oilers and perhaps some of these other veteran teams we're talking about are struggling to wrap their heads around the fact that, you know what, in order to play January and in order to play March and in order to play certainly May and June, we've got to take care of October hockey first. And we've got to get ourselves back in that mode, back in the game speed, because the league will not wait for you. We've already seen it. We've already seen it. Dallas came ready to go. Veteran team. And, Dallas hasn't been doing what maybe Edmonton's been doing, for instance. Maybe Edmonton's thinking about June 24th. We are 1 goal away. You know what? Dallas has every bit of a reason to wonder what might have been. They were up 2-1 in the conference final and 2-0 in game 4 with a crowd out of it in Edmonton.
Mm-hmm.
And they let the Oilers off the hook. And once they did, they never got it back. Back.
Nope.
But they have channeled the early season. And I think tonight's a matchup of two teams that have not. I also think it's instructive. And talking with Andrew Burnett this morning, we were saying, well, people saw the additions of Skinner and Arvidsson. Whoa, the rich get richer. In Nashville, they see Marchessault, Stamkos, Brady Shea. Holy cow. This was maybe the hottest. It was the hottest team in the league for about 8 weeks. I think Nashville was 16-0-2 in one stretch.
Yeah,
they're going to be really good. It never meshes together right away. Never does. You can put, I mean, that's why the All-Star game is the All-Star game, right? It's devolved, right? I mean, it's just, I think these teams are learning to play with one another. And even though you could say, oh, only 5 or 6 guys have changed. Well, the locker room has changed. For Edmonton, the natural energy and, I guess locker room presence that a guy like Ryan McLeod always has a smile on his face. A guy like Warren Fogle who played the role of the grump very well. A guy like Kiefer Sherwood for Nashville. Andrew Burnett, I said, what was the key to that 18-game streak? He said, you know what? We put Cole Smith with Michael McCarron and Kiefer Sherwood. If you had given me 30 things about what was the key to Nashville 16-0, I would never have said, oh, it's got to be Smith, Sherwood, and McCarron. I would have said, well, Gus Nyquist, career year, Forsberg. Yeah, I would have said anything, but not that. And that's what Pierre especially knows. You don't know until you talk to the guy in the room, and you don't know until you talk to the players in the room what you perceive might be a minor difference is making a major impact. I know Edmonton's room is a little quieter right now, and they're adjusting to that. And I guarantee you, if Andrew Burnett's saying that's the spark, well, they're missing that right now, and they're putting Cole Smith back with Michael McCarron tonight, probably in an effort to recapture some of that spark.
Hey, Jimmy, you hear what my friend from Edmonton just said? So if you're a Blues fan, he talked about the depth players and how important they are.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Kastelik, Beecher, Kepke. The winningest coach, Jack, in the history of the National Hockey League told us 2 weeks ago.
Before the season.
The league now, if you do not have good depth players in the league today, you're not winning.
Right.
That's the trend because all the top guys are canceling each other out. Jack, what I love about you is your passion, your energy, your knowledge. I love it. It's second to none at the position that you hold in the league, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. What did you think the other night when your coach, Chris Knobloch, benched Draisaitl for 2.5 shifts, let's say?
It's the only currency you have left, right, Pierre? I mean, Chris Knobloch's not making $14 million. I mean, he's not. He doesn't hold and probably never will hold that level of, here in the game. Now, who knows? He might win 6 Stanley Cups in a row and maybe he will hold it. I don't think that's going to happen. Leon Draisaitl is an elite player in this game. But when elite players find themselves sitting in the middle of the bench, next to the defense, everyone knows it. It's not, the players aren't just playing, hey, we're still down 3-2. They're like, whoa, what, like, that's major, right? It has an impact. And it wasn't just Leon Draisaitl. He sat down Zach Hyman. He sat down Corey Perry. He understands that it's early enough in the season, yes, but it's time to get everyone's attention. It's time to play.
Yeah. Go ahead. No, finish up.
No, it's time to make decisions in the best interest of the team. And if you're going to take, a selfish penalty like Corey Perry and Leon Draisaitl did earlier in that hockey game, I'm gonna make a point. And Leon Draisaitl responded to it, the best way he could. And I'm not talking about the overtime winner, the play he made on the game-tying goal, that pass. I mean, he's the best passer in the game. He needed to be refocused, but it's the team. And Leon's the kind of guy that understands that. And he is the son of a coach. And Chris Knobloch told us a funny story this morning when he was 17 years old He scored an OT winner after being benched in the game, and he still was pissed at the coach after. It doesn't mean that they don't think you still made a mistake by benching him, but they're going to still stick it to you, and in doing so, help the team.
So I told Jimmy this, Jack, the other day. I've watched all your games, obviously, and the thing that stood out to me is your star players in Edmonton aren't competing without the puck. They are not. And at some point, whether it's Paul Coffey, whether it's Mark Stewart, whether it's Chris Knobloch, doesn't matter who it is, somebody's going to lose on one of those guys. And I wonder, you're traveling with those guys. Do they talk about that? Do they talk about how you compete without the puck?
I think at this point in the season, they're not there yet. And the win over Philadelphia, I'm sure they're thinking it was instructive to win that way, because the only reason they were in the game in the first place is because of the depth players. Adam Henrique scored a goal, Connor Brown scored a goal, but more to the point, those were the guys keeping Edmonton in the game. And this was truly a case where there have been seasons where they did everything they could and the Oilers were lost in spite of their best efforts. But at the start of this year, Pierre, you're absolutely right. It started from the top on down. Like McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman not having the impact they should. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins not having, not producing the way they did and the way they alternated, over the course of that playoff run. I think it's something that the coaching staff at this stage of the year has very much still placed ownership in the players. I don't think they necessarily said after the game, well, that's how you compete, or they're hoping that the way they won that hockey game, and I'll say this, and I understand Philadelphia's got to play a certain way, but I don't think Sean Couturier helped his team by waking the Oilers up by barreling into Stuart Skinner. And I have all the respect in the world for Sean Couturier, and John Tortorella's team needs to play that way. They're not overly talented. They've got to ride that line. But the emotion and energy in that game, even though it picked up for both clubs, it favors Edmonton. It favors the more talented team that's aroused now, that's fully engaged in the hockey game, than the less talented team, who might be just as, intellectually engaged, but they're not as good. They're not as talented. Now you've got that would have been a game where if I'm Philadelphia, I let the Oilers sleep a little bit. And again, if you think about it, though, it's Stetcher fighting. It's Corey Perry fighting. That's what got everyone in the game. The star players finished it off. And, Pierre, I think that what the coaching staff is hoping is there's an instructive quality in that victory that if you truly are a veteran group and you truly are great leaders, you don't need to be told that's why you won the hockey game. They're hoping it kind of takes care of itself. And the manner in which they won, Chris Knobloch also said something that I agree with today. If you win that game 6-1, maybe you think, we're back to, we're back to the Oilers, blah, blah, blah. We can saunter into Nashville where we usually score 7 goals a game. But working as hard as they needed to do to win that game and dig themselves out of a potential 0-4 hole themselves, they're hoping they realize that it was the collective and that it was energy, emotion, and caring, Pierre, about the small details and about taking care of the particulars that got them through.
Well said.
Let me ask you this, Jack. In terms of Chris Knobloch, you've mentioned he's from afar. He seems to, and obviously that he grew a lot last year and taking the team all the way to the Stanley Cup final. But he seems to be more of himself. Am I wrong? And what is his coaching style like now compared to last year in terms of a comfort level?
Chris is a hard read. I mean, he's what you see is what you get.
Right.
He doesn't turn into, he doesn't turn into Eddie Murphy raw when you're just hanging out with him. I mean, he's the same guy. I mean, he's hilarious.
You youngin, check that out, by the way. Good analogy.
He is very, so I don't think he necessarily arrives or has more confidence, or I think he's been through his first NHL training camp, and I think he learned a few things along the way, like, oh, holy cow, we got a camp here that we need to elevate, and he knew it. He knew early. He knew early that the club was was still in June, right? He knew it. He is going to be selective in how he picks his spots. And I thought he picked a few good ones the other night against Philadelphia. It's funny because I want to be careful in the comparison I draw here because, it's one thing to go to 3 Stanley Cup finals and win 2 of them and have this approach. But I do think Chris Knoblauch is going to be stealing a page out of John Cooper a little bit. A couple years ago, and this was after, I think, the 3rd consecutive trip to the final, John told us, like, I can't bring the whip down on these guys all the time. They know what the important games are. They know when I'm just harassing them to harass them. I can't do it. Like, I've got to give them some rope. And I think Chris Knoblauch is finding that balance right now, even though the Oilers haven't won a championship. They have been to a Stanley Cup final, and they've now been to 2 conference finals. And they are the oldest team in the league, and they've got a bunch of players in that dressing room who've now experienced what June hockey is all about. So he is going to have to walk that proverbial minefield and understand that the other thing is it's a bit of a, at least on the surface, it's early in the season, but going into the year, I'm sure everyone had 5 playoff teams out of the Central and 3 in the Pacific. It's not an overly strong division. So are you going to really step on this team's throat if they're 10-10 after 20 games? That's going to be the balance throughout this year, is to manage Edmonton's emotion, accountability through this 40 or 50 game stretch to make the last 30 games as meaningful as they should. Quite frankly, I think the Oilers veterans know in their heart of hearts that it would be nice to wrap up a division title, that it would be nice to rest some of those guys over the stretch instead of having to slam it into the red for 4 months like they had to last year just to get into the postseason and just to get a home first-round series. I think they know that logically. But again, I go back to they also know that practically they can get away with it because they've gotten away with it before, and they know when to turn it on, and they've dug themselves out of those holes. So it's a real fascinating blender that Chris Knoblauch is going to have to – you talk about changing speeds. He's going to have to change speeds a lot this season is my hunch.
How's your partner doing with his son being just down the road in Vancouver? We're talking about Louis DeBrusk.
Yeah. Well, Cindy, I can tell you, is overjoyed. I think Louis, is now caught in that. That was certainly between cities and fan bases. That was a pretty heated 7-gamer play between Edmonton and Vancouver. And you know what? That's another team that, even in the Pacific Division, I felt like Vancouver would be subject to the most variance. And what I mean by that is, they could put up another 105 points, but you know what? They could be an 80 or 85 point team. And that's because they have two massive questions involving arguably their 2 most important players. Who's going to play net? Thatcher Demko's injury status. And is Elias Pettersson the contender for scoring champ that we saw in the first 55 games this year, or is he the guy who scored 2 goals in his last 29 games and seems to be searching? And Rick Tocchet, I thought, did a heck of a job last year, an amazing job. You look at a lot of the Jack Adams Award winners, and they did great jobs, and it seemed like everything seemed to click for certain guys, and I think Vancouver is going to be dealing with that this year a little bit too. I got a lot of questions about this Pacific Division. I really do. I don't know whether you've got a consistent team games 1 through 82, Edmonton included, because again, I think the Oilers are going to really be fighting themselves all year long in terms of when to turn it on in the regular season. On paper, this should be Edmonton's division and should be it. I think rather easily their first division title since 1987. But practically, some of their top players are going to be fighting that a little bit in the regular season. And the other thing is questions remain on the blue line. And, those are well-founded. And there's, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that, Troy Stetcher or Ty Emberson or Travis Dermott are long-term solutions in a top 4 or even 5.
Good.
Hey, Jimmy, before you jump in, I just want to say one of the things Jack just talked about is the depth and goal in Vancouver. And a player left there, and he's playing in Dallas now, Casey DeSmith.
Mm-hmm.
And I was shocked. And I told this to Jimmy Jack on the air. I was shocked that they didn't sign him. I was shocked.
And in turn, Pierre, I was shocked that Dallas didn't bring back Scott Wedgwood. He was a popular guy there. I was stunned by that. I mean, you're right. They got to Smith, but again, I was a little surprised they didn't bring back Wedgwood. I can tell you this, Pierre, that the word out of Vancouver during Edmonton's series with the Canucks was that despite putting up 2 quality starts against the Oilers in the regular season, that Casey DeSmith was never a candidate to start any of those 7 games. So I don't know whether at some point Rick Tocchet may have lost faith in him. So that might be a solution. That was the word out of Vancouver, because I kept saying, because I thought Shelovs did a nice job against Nashville, no question about it. But I thought, as the sample size increased, that Edmonton would get to him. And, what I was told is that don't expect to see Casey DeSmith anytime soon.
Interesting. Good stuff. Well, Jack, we will let you go. We know you got a game tonight. Get ready for it. Enjoy it. It was great to have you back on. It's good to see you, and we'll get you on down the line.
Hey, Jimmy, before you let him go, we got to ask him, are you guys staying over, or are you booking out after the game?
We're booking out after the game. We've got a return trip to Nashville in 2 weeks, so I think they're trying to limit the Music City exposure. And Pierre, we got 3 days in Vegas at the beginning of December, so there's a reason they don't let us linger.
Hey, Jack, just save your per diem envelopes. Save your per diem envelopes. That's all I'm going to tell you.
Most of my friends would tell you, Pierre, I've got every per diem envelope the last 15 years.
Yeah. Thanks, Jack.
It's my version of the 401k.
There he goes. Jack Michaels, play-by-play man for the Oilers. He's a character, I'll tell you that.
You know what, though, Jimmy? I love listening to him. I listen to he and Louis. I was going to call him Jake. I listen to him and Louis all the time.
Yeah.
They're good. They care about the home team. They get it. They work for, Sportsnet, but they're the Edmonton broadcasters, but they're fair. And they know the other. Here's the thing that's, I think, a bit of a problem in the league today. The local broadcasters know their teams really well. And obviously they have a bias. That's always going to be there. That's their job. They know where their bread is buttered.
Right.
But they don't do enough. A lot of these broadcasters don't do enough to know the other guys on the other team. They do a disservice to the game. Louis and Jack in Edmonton, that doesn't happen. They know the other team. They're respectful of the other team, and they call it the way it is. I like that. I respect that a lot about them. They do a really good job.
Look at the good inside info he just gave us on DeSmith there in Vancouver. That's him. Attention to the opponent.
I brought it up because I'm looking at them right now, and I watched Seelovs play the other day in Tampa, and I'm just telling you right now, Casey DeSmith's better than him.
Yep.
He's better. So I'm telling you.
And by the way, and we'll definitely pump them up again before we get to you know what? We can do it now. I'll mix it into this because his little pointer there about 3 days in Vegas before a game
in December.
Gives me a little idea here. And let's segue right to Betway on that note. So, of course, as we always love to tell you, Betway is a leading global online betting and gaming brand. Follow your gut instinct. Go with Betway. You can look at that QR code right there if you're watching right now. Sign up there or go to betway.com and sign up there. Remember, you have to be 18 plus and always bet responsibly. I think responsibly right now is to remember what Jack Michaels told you come December. Mark that on your calendar. Edmonton Oilers 3 days in Vegas before they play what I think is a tough Vegas Golden Knights team, especially at home. How will they be when they get on the ice after 3 days in Vegas? That's what I would say. Remember that. I know they're professionals, but
I'm gonna have to look to see if it's before they play or after.
I just did. It's before. Yeah, it's before. It's a Saturday, a Sunday, and a Monday leading into a Tuesday game.
Where are they coming in from?
Oh, let me see, because it carries back to November. They are coming in from Colorado on Saturday night.
Okay, so and then they're playing Tuesday.
And then they play Tuesday after 2 days in Vegas.
So they're
They're
going
going to
to
go out Sunday night. They'll go out Sunday night.
Oh, they're going to have Sunday off. That'll be the rookie dinner. They'll
Yeah.
do the rookie dinner on Sunday. They'll run. So what they'll do is they'll run high octane Saturday when they land because they're going to they're going to gain an hour, and then probably have a workout, but not on the ice.
Yep.
Then rookie dinner. Then they're going
And
to
recover Monday.
And they're going to skate hard on Monday.
All right, so they might be recovered by then.
I know what I would be doing.
You've been there. I know. Good stuff. But yeah, definitely check out Betway and my pick of the day. And we're gonna get this going. Our production crew, Sammy was suggesting it. We'll do it the sick pick of the day. We'll get the graphic going soon. But my Betway pick of the day, Pierre, is I'm looking right now to that game we were just discussing. And I'm liking the Oilers in this game. I'm not, from what I've seen from the Predators yet, they haven't found that extra groove that the Oilers finally dug deep and found the other night. I think the Oilers feed off that. I like them on the money line to go in and get the win in Nashville. I think it'll be a tight game, but I think the Oilers come out with the win. So that is my pick of the day for Betway. Don't forget to go check them out. All right, let's get to the Q&A. GB, question. Hey, Pierre and Jimmy, what the heck is going on with LA, especially defensively? It's a good question.
There's a guy named Drew Doughty that's not there, and it shows you how good a great defenseman can influence so many things. And when you don't have that, it's a big problem. I watched them last night against Toronto. They were no good. Jimmy Spence was a healthy scratch, by the way. So that's a bit of a problem, I think. I don't know why they did that, but they know better than us because they were coaching the team. But all I'll say is Doughty's a huge loss. It's a massive loss for them.
It is. There's just so much he does for that team, Pierre, defensively and offensively, and of course, leadership-wise as well. Yeah. And a lot of people, and sometimes it can unify a group the right way, but sometimes, Pierre, as you know, when you have a player of that caliber out, a lot of guys are going to try and compensate and maybe do things they're not necessarily used to doing. So
that's fair. I watched Mikey Anderson last night, who I knew going all the way back when Mikey played in Waterloo for the Blackhawks. Just telling you, that's a long time ago.
Yep.
And I watched him trying to do some stuff deep in his own zone, and he got hammered last night. Bobby McMahon got him clean. He ripped him.
By the way, what a game for Bobby McMahon on the Toronto
side. He does
side.
a lot. It's about time people start to recognize that kid was a really good player at Colgate. I watched him play his junior, senior year a lot.
We were on him the second he got called up here. Finally, you said, "Watch out for this kid."
Yeah, he's a player. Like, he's a big, strong man. He's from Wainwright, Alberta.
Smart too. I like his instinct.
Yeah, no, he's good. He's good. But anyways, I look at Mikey Anderson and I'm like, Mikey, all you got to do is move the puck. You're not going to be Drew Doughty. You're not going to be Seth Jones, man. You just got to get the puck and move it. Don't try to toe drag people. And it's to your point. You're right on, Jimmy. Guys try to do too much when it's star players out of the lineup.
Exactly. I forget who it was on the Bruins way back. Told me that he goes, the biggest thing you can do is just keep it simple. Stick to the plan. Don't think too much. Just boom, boom, boom. Get it up ice.
As a great Jacques Laperriere used to tell his players in Montreal, use the window. Throw it off the glass. Use the window.
All right. Next question. Evan McLaren. What's up, Evan? What do the Penguins do with Tristan Jarry?
Oh my gosh.
I don't know. I hate, look, I'm a goalie at heart, and I hate seeing goalies seemingly lose confidence when they know they have the skill. And I see that with Jarry right now. He's just lost, Pierre. I mean, that's the bottom line. And I don't know how he finds it.
This is hard for me because when you know a kid for a long time and you really know him, you know that he's not trying to do this.
No.
But has this been going on probably for 2 or 3 years? And I know he's been in 2 All-Star games. I know he's had some really good runs with Pittsburgh. But, Jimmy, we talked about this before the season. I'm just trying to be fair here.
The bad goals.
Bad goal game. It kills you. And like last night, it was 2 bad goals, Jimmy.
Mhm.
And that's why he gets pulled. And
And
I'm going to – I'll put this – and then your brain starts going all over.
Mhm. Yep.
I think once Nedeljkovic is back, because they can't trade – I don't think they can trade that contract.
No.
Once Nedeljkovic is back, then I think, Tristan becomes a backup, and they're going to run with the hot hand.
Mhm.
And you look at Tristan won in Montreal the other night, on Monday night, and then they come back and they play at home on Wednesday, and it's against Buffalo. And my buddy Mark Madden, whom we talked about before, asked me who's going to get the game. I said they're going to go with Jarry because he's hot, but it's not going to be a long leash. And Jarry gets pulled, and Bloomquist goes in, and Bloomquist played well. He played well. He played well.
I mean, look, and again, I like the kid too. I don't know him as well as you, but I've always liked him, and I know he's skilled. I know he has it. But you look at the contract they just gave him, Pierre, that start last year. I just feel like I put this more on management that they just jumped the gun. They jumped the gun there, and I get it. You're looking at the goalie market, and you're saying, well, what if he finds it again? What if he is what he can be? We're never going to get him at this cap hit of 5.3, but it is what it is.
What I'm looking at, Jimmy, you're raising really good points, and this is a one. We talked about this a lot last year going into the trade deadline. What's Montreal going to do with Jake Allen?
Mm-hmm.
So they move him to New Jersey. And what's Jersey do? Not only do they take Jake Allen and keep him, they go out and get Markstrom.
Right.
Jake Allen was way undervalued.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
By
the way, he became he's the only goalie to ever beat 33 NHL teams. 33 different NHL teams.
That's a cool story. That's a good one. But you know what I'm saying? Jake Allen's a valuable component for New Jersey. If they go on a run, Jake's going to be part of it.
Yep, for sure. Just like he was in St. Louis.
Yep.
So we'll see. By the way, speaking of goalies, what'd you think of the Jake Ottinger extension? I think Swayman has set the market. Are we all good saying that?
He said it, but here's the one thing. Ottinger's been further in the playoffs than
I know. Swayman has. So that's almost a deal in my eyes for Dallas.
You know what the best part is for Ottinger? He lives in Texas. It's a no-tax state. It's not like Massachusetts.
So there you go. Yeah, that's right. Good catch. I didn't even think of it. Yep. That definitely plays a role for sure. All right, next question. Alex Ivanowski, when a team is giving up too many goals, which two options do you prefer? Tightening up defensively and sacrificing offense in return, or changing nothing and just switching out the goaltender? It's a great question.
Tighten up.
Tighten up.
Yeah, tighten up. And here's the thing. When you tighten up, you force more turnovers. And when you force more turnovers, you create more offense. Yep. When you tighten up defensively, you can create more offense. And we talked about that with Malkin before. Yep. Malkin's creating better offense this year because he's competing defensively.
Well, I heard you talking about it yesterday with our good friend Mitch Melnick, Pierre. And what you were saying about the Canadians. And when they start to do that, they play better. They win more. They score more.
They need to. And they're with their team every day. But I do think I have a little experience when it comes to this. They need to practice, and I'm not at their practices, but I don't care if I'm there or not. I can tell you they're not practicing defensive zone coverage hard enough. And they need to focus on that.
Yep.
If they are practicing defensive zone coverage, they're not teaching the right things. I'll tell you that right now.
Yep. So, you'll be talking about them plenty in the next 24 hours, huh?
Yeah, I'm doing their post-game coverage tonight.
Their post-game, that's what I wanted you to tell the people there. Pierre will be doing the post-game tonight on TSN 690, and then, of course, you can see him here tomorrow talking again about them on the eye test.
When I talk to you guys tomorrow, I'll be in Denver, Colorado, getting ready for Denver Northeastern. Opening night for the defending national champion, Denver Pioneers.
Pierre, you've been in college hockey. I don't know if you've ever been coaching a team that went up against the defending national champs in the next season, and where maybe they were. But when you get a team like Northeastern, who is is ready to take that step, I think it's fair to say. What's a game like this mean to that program right now?
A lot. It means a lot to both programs because they're putting their banner up in Denver, and that's a blue blood franchise. Denver, hockey is a blue blood franchise, so it means a lot to them, to their fans. It's hard to get tickets there. It's a beautiful arena. It's a great place for hockey. Denver's an amazing place for hockey. And for a school like Northeastern, it means a lot. It adds credibility to your program. It adds credibility to Hockey East if you can go out there and do something, and Hockey East prides itself in being one of the top conferences in the country. So it's a big responsibility for Northeastern. They've chosen to accept it. I know they're practicing this afternoon. They got there about 35 minutes ago or 40 minutes ago. And they're going right to the rink, and they're a business trip. It's all business. I can't wait. I can't wait to get there tomorrow. I'll be doing the show with you. I'm like, Jimmy, let's get after it.
That's great. I might have to have you. Well, I don't know how long you there. Just a night?
No, I'm going to be at both games. I'm going to go to both games. Friday, Saturday.
I have somebody I might want to introduce you
to. All right, that's good.
Good restaurant person in Denver, but I'm sure you've got some good ones from.
I do, but you know what? You never have enough. It's good. It's
exactly. We'll talk. All right. Next question. What do we got? John Smith. Gents, how long do you think the Habs will play revolving door with their 6D before making a move? Not long.
I think it's early in the year to be talking about that, only because of injuries.
Yeah, I do. You know what I'm thinking, though, as I read that question, Pierre? It's a good sign that the Habs are at the stage where their fans are asking those kind of questions. They're worried about the third period. That means they must be happy about the rest of the team.
What are you going to do with that, Jack? What are you going to do with Barron? When's Struble going to get a chance? I get it.
Yeah.
The one thing they can't say is we're taking Lane Hudson out of the lineup.
No.
I'm not going to be saying that.
Not at all. All right, next question. Randy Workman, Jimmy and Pierre, is Rasmus Anderson top pair defense?
Yes, 100%. Here's the thing on Rasmus. He can move the puck. He can skate the puck. He can manufacture offense. He can play against other teams' top players. He can hit people if he has to. He can kill penalties. He is a top pairing guy. He's a very underrated. It's a lot like Josh Morrissey in Winnipeg. Not enough people see either one of those two guys play. They're both top pairing defensemen. They're both excellent players.
And Pierre, if I'm not mistaken, he's got one more season after this. I'm thinking he could be a big catch at the trade deadline. That's just a hunch.
I don't know. I try to get him signed and keep him. I mean, this guy's a heck of a player. I'm telling you, Jimmy. Where I really noticed how good he is when we were in the pod in Edmonton in 2020. 2020. When we were in the pod in Edmonton, I'm just telling you, I saw this guy practice and play every day, and I was blown away by how good he was. Really blown away.
Yeah, I like him. He makes some plays out of nothing. That's what I like about him. Like you think it's not there, and then boom. All right, next question. A to Z me. Hey, gents, Deminoff is not getting a lot of ice time in the KHL, in my opinion. This might be a good thing for him long term. Never take your spot for granted. Might make him hungrier as a pro. Pierre, before you answer that, I just want to say, too, I want to give my good friend Marco D'Amico credit. Wrote a great story, interviewed the coach of Demidov in Russia, Rottenberg.
Rottenberg.
You know the man? You've met him? Okay. Anyhow, that's exactly the type of quotes he was giving Marco and just talking about, look, we're just basing on merit. And if he can't have that position all the time just based on his skill, we don't know what's going on over there. We're not there. But all I'm saying is I agree with the question there. And I don't think in the long run it's going to hurt him. I think it could help him because it's going to make him realize he needs to earn it.
I don't know who the assistants are there. And usually the assistants work, with those players. That's my one concern. If he's not getting the extra work in practice, that lack of ice time is going to hurt him. I'm just telling you. So it's really, and again, I keep telling you lessons I learned from Scotty because it's true. When you're an assistant coach with a team and you're playing in a playoff or you're over the course of an 80-game schedule and you got players, whether they're young or old, that don't play a lot, your job as that assistant coach is to make sure when that guy's ice time gets elevated or his responsibility gets elevated, he's ready to accept that challenge. And that's a big job. And people don't realize how important those jobs are. And I don't know who their assistants are doing that. If I did, I would tell you straight up, he's in good hands. I don't know who they are. So if I knew, I'd be able to give you a better opinion. I just don't know.
And right there, what you're saying, Pierre, you're honestly, you don't know there. And I think that's part of the reason we're having so much concern from Habs fans about his playing time and his development is because right now there's just such a barrier, with information coming out of that league, like good practice information, so to speak, that you can get here in the NHL. So nobody really knows, like Pierre just said, what's going on. So it's hard to tell where he's at. All right. What do we got next? Next question. Ron LaRoque, did you happen to see the TV ratings for opening night? Way down. Personally, I live in Saskatchewan and they need to lift local blackouts. I can't even watch a Habs game. Ron, you are not alone. And it's not just the Habs. It's a lot of NHL teams right now. I've seen a lot of people on social media complaining about the Utah blackouts that are going on and how they're having to pay an extra $70 a month to even just watch games online. This is an issue NHL needs to address.
Chicago's a big problem.
Chicago's a big one as well. I think Denver could get.
I don't want to say much about this. I talk to my partner a lot when we're not on the air about this.
Uh-huh.
I'm trying to figure out the best way to say it. They know baseball. This is a really difficult time for hockey with TV ratings because of baseball playoffs. And you've got three major markets with the Dodgers, with the Yankees, with the Mets. And I know people, that's a bunch of – no, it matters.
No.
Trust me, it matters. I did it for a long time. I did over 25 years of national TV. And it matters. It matters regionally, and it matters nationally. That being said, I think we get back to broadcasting hockey and stop trying to do Hollywood, okay? That's all I'm going to say about it.
All right. Agreed. And but it's an issue that's getting bigger here. It's something we'll keep an eye on. All right, next question. David Robinson, Pierre, you talked about travel affecting players recently. Can you recall any time where travel might have affected your coaching decisions or even your performance on TV calls? It's a great question, Dave.
Yeah, well, I can't about TV because I did it in the playoffs for almost 16 years. I worked the game every night right until the Stanley Cup final. I was on the road for 2 straight months. I don't think it affected me. I prepared for it. I trained for it. I was in the gym a lot. Just, I'd fly in and fly out. Very seldom was I on private planes. Most of the time, I'd first plane out every morning, get to the city where I was supposed to be, get a nap, get a good meal, get a workout, go to the rink. Same thing,
Mm-hmm.
But I would say coaching it, yeah, for sure. For sure, in terms of minutes played, and you got to pay attention to that. Now, that part of it is, again, I'm a big believer in mentorship. And I watched early in my career, I watched Badger Bob Johnson, I watched Scotty Bowman manipulate organizations and that won Stanley Cups, and they were so smart when it came to that stuff. And so, my experience is maybe a little bit more on an educated side just because of the people I worked for and the success that they had. Badger was amazing, and Scotty was brilliant. He was brilliant. He really
Pierre,
was.
just to follow up on that, and you didn't have this luxury back then, but now these coaches, and I say this because it reminded me of what Jim Montgomery said yesterday prior to the game in Denver. Somebody asked him about the effect of the elevation. Is it real, or is that just a myth?
He coached it.
Real. Yeah. And he said, and we are so lucky now to have such great science that helps us prepare for that. That helps us know when we should get into a certain town, if there's something like that, or weather, or what have you. Everything. We have so much at our fingertips, and he said, I've done my best to just pay as much attention to that as I can because I think it helps.
Yeah, no, you're right. The only thing I'll tell you, and this is important, Scotty did this when Detroit and San Jose and Colorado were all good. He talked to somebody that was a specialist in this kind of stuff about altitude training and all that. Mm-hmm. And they would play, whether it had been LA or Anaheim or San Jose. And
they used to call it the Bermuda Triangle, right? Or the California Triangle?
The game was over. Let's say they had to go to Colorado. They would fly in the day of the game. They wouldn't fly in at night. They'd stay over wherever they were, get a good meal for the players, and fly in the day of the game because there was an opinion at that time, and this is back in the late 1990s, early 2000s, that if you were going to altitude, if you weren't going to be there 3 days before or 2 days before, it was better just to go on the day out.
Okay.
Play and get out. And for them, it worked. Because look at all the big games they had with Colorado. I mean, it's crazy.
And Pierre, what was the city out of the 3 Cali cities I've always heard you talk about that has the the earliest curfew?
San Jose. San Jose was painful, and getting into Anaheim. So if you played in San Jose, you had a bus to Oakland to fly out, and so that was about 45 minutes to an hour. And you couldn't land in Anaheim because it would close early too. So you had to land in Los Angeles, and then you bus down, and that was another 45 minutes to an hour. So by the time, if it was a back-to-back and you were playing San Jose, Anaheim back-to-back, chances are you weren't in bed till 4 o'clock, 3:30, 4 o'clock.
So it plays a role. That's why it was so tough when those teams are all good at once.
If you're an Eastern team, that's at the end of your trip. You
Yep.
don't usually start your trip that way. You end your trip that way.
All right. Next question.
Jimmy, we're going to have to go soon here. I got another.
Just, Hey, Shane Oliver will finish it off here. Hey, guys, Pierre, if you were coaching the Kings today, did you let the Kings party last night in Montreal? I think they need it.
No, they already did their party when they played in Ottawa.
Yeah,
They
exactly.
did their party, and that's why you saw what you saw last night, I believe.
Yeah. And Shane, thanks for your video question the other day. We loved it. All right. Want to thank Jack Michaels. He was great to talk to Jack for sure. Good suggestion on that guest. Thank you to you, Pierre. Thanks to our production crew back in Montreal. And of course, to you, the viewers and the listeners. This has been another edition of the Eye Test here on the Sick Podcast Network.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.